Hi guys, this is Leela. Welcome to my channel Leela Web Dev. In our previous video, we have learned about how to create the cluster module, right? So here automatically the servers are getting created. So if you try to see in our server, let's try to clear it off. Here if I try to run the node cluster, let's go to the current and here I will be using the clustering, and here if I try to go to the cluster.js file. So now if I try to run this one, so here we are able to see these are all the servers whichever we are running it. So how many servers are running, that is depending on the cores, how many cores you are having. So if you are having 8 cores means, so then you will be able to see that 8 different Node.js instances will be running. Now if you try to see in my activity monitor, see here you will be able to see 10 plus 1 11 processor, 1 2 3 4 5 6 7 8 9 10 11 processor running. So one is the master and remaining all 10 are the workers. So the master is running, why it is means, so that there is nothing to do with the master. So why? Because the master which we are trying to see it, so normally it is still a Node.js process only. It is just responsible for spawning and managing the worker process only. So if you fork the cluster, the master process doesn't exist. It continues to run alongside with the 10 worker process. So that is the main thing. Okay, so this one is who will maintain is the operating system scheduler decides which CPU core the master process runs on. So here you don't think that out of this 10 cores extra one it is running, so like that. So the CPU operating system scheduler will decide it. It may run on any core and can even move between the cores also depending on the system load and also the scheduling policies. So that is the main thing. So the master process isn't specified or isn't bound to a specific core, unlike workers which are so these workers which are doing heavy lifting, right? The master typically uses the minimal CPU, mostly handling the inter-process communication, restarts and load balancing logic. Those all the things the master process will be taking care. So that is all about the cluster thing. So now let's try to see here. Here if you try to see, all the ports are listening, all the worker servers are listening to the same port only, 3000. So you may be having doubt that why so this one is listening. So you may be having all doubt. If you try to run two Node.js scripts on the same port, you will be able to get error listening e address in use, address already in use. So like this error we will be able to see. So now how can these all the Node.js instances are getting run? So here with the cluster module, Node makes an exception here. So whatever the cluster module we are trying to see, right? We are trying to create the Node.js instances or these all the code using the cluster module. So here Node has an exception. The primary process only sets up a shared socket internally. So the primary process, whichever you are trying to run the node server.js, so that is the only one which listens to that one. So when you call dot listen of 3000 in each worker, they do not bind directly to the port 3000 themselves. Instead, Node internally shares the same TCP connection among all the workers. Node uses internally the round robin load balancer by default on Unix system to dispatch the incoming connection. I have already shown you in a previous video that how the two processes will communicate to each other using the inter-process communication, Unix domain socket. So in the same scenario, so here the all the worker process and all those things will share the same file, that is nothing but the socket file, and it will share the communication. So it will share the communication between those things. So now that is the main thing which you need to understand. So then all the workers are created. So how can you think that which is a primary process? So here when you run the script once, node server.js file. So here we have run the script node server cluster.js file. So our node server.js file, that very first process becomes a primary process. This is the process becomes a primary process. So this one is called as an normally master also you can say it. So this process has an cluster.is primary true. Then inside the cluster.is primary block, it runs the cluster.fork multiple times. Each fork starts a new child process. These are called workers. These workers will have cluster.is primary as false. That is the main thing. So here primary process means the first process created by running the script. It controls the workers. It does not handle any HTTP requests or anything directly. So just it will try to listen, the primary process will to listen to the 3000. So whenever a request comes, it will give that request to any one of the worker who is idle depending on the round robin method. So now worker process means, so these worker process is created using the cluster.fork. So these are the ones that actually run the server and responds to the HTTP request. So that means only one process is the primary, no matter how many workers are forked. So that is the main thing. So so that is all about this one. So now you may be having a doubt that if the primary doesn't handle the HTTP requests that listening to the port, so then who are listening to the port actually? So if I'm saying that the workers doesn't listen to the port, I'm saying, right? So then who will be listening to this one? So here what I would be trying to tell is internally the primary process sets up the shared server socket on port 3000. So whenever the worker calls, so here the worker calls listening to the server http.create server or something listening, it doesn't create a new socket, it connects to the existing socket, the primary already opened. So Node.js load balances incoming requests across the workers. Example, round robin in the Unix or OS scheduling on the Windows. So this is how you will be able to see this one. So normally workers, when it call listen 3000, so they don't create, the primary process binds to the port. It shares the port internally across all the workers, and the workers receive connections via IPC, inter-process communication, from the primary. So that is all about the concept. Okay. So that is what I want to tell you about this primary process and all those things. So now, so now if you try to if I go to another thing, so now that's it, guys. So now you will be having a clear understanding about the cluster. So in the finally, what I want to tell you is, so whenever you are trying to run the node cluster.js file, so immediately the same thing. So it will go the first time whenever the node is executing, the instance is executing. So it will have the is primary one. So then it will start to fork the same child process. And when it is trying to bind to the port, so the primary process actually binds to the internal port. And if for every worker, it will be creating a socket, so that using the socket they will be sharing the things. So now that your socket is nothing but inter-process communication socket, which I have shown you with the file name, right? The same thing it will be trying to do it. So fine. So now for example, let's say that in the real world, so now we have started this one. In the real world servers, workers can crash due to bugs or overload, etc. So the primary process should watch for this and restart them, right? So now whenever the process, so here you'll be able to see, so whenever the things exit or something like that, it needs to restart them. Normally what you can do it is, so here, so you can cluster.on of exit worker code signal. So here worker process has been died. Here I will try to remove this one. So now if you run this terminal, okay, so whenever, so I'm clearing this one off. So whenever you run this one, all the servers are listening to this port, right? So now we are having that 2606 is the master or the primary. Now here I will try to delete this one. So which is 2616. Oh, 26161 is the only, sorry, I will try to remove this one. So if I try to remove this one, force quit, and here in our here you will be able to see that 2609 has been died. So now if I try to check this activity monitor, right now we will be having only some of the things only. So 2606 is the only thing which is, so now here I will try to, sorry, I will try to, I will try to remove these two things, 2616 and so here if I try to remove it, so now another two Node.js instance has been removed. So like this, if you are going on removing like this means, so what will happen? So now without your so these things, your app could slowly lose capacity as workers die over time. So with it, so now here what we can do, so whenever your server is getting executed died, whenever your worker is dying, you can directly create the another one, cluster.fork. So now what will happen? So whenever a worker is died means, so immediately this one will be started. So now if I try to run this one, let's try to see. So here I will try to run this one. So server is listening to the port. Now here 2636 is the primary port. Now if I try to remove, what is that one, 2641. So here I will try to remove this one. So if I try to remove this one, see here, you'll be able to see 2641 has been died and a new one has been started. So immediately new one has been started, so that you can able to see all the things you will be having. If I try to remove this one, so immediately another node process is starting. So if I try to remove, for example, 2636 is the main one, right? Apart from 2636, what I will try to do, 2636 at the top, okay. Here I will try to, I'm removing these, so up to here I am removing it. So if I try to remove these all the things at a time, force quit, see I have removed and immediately everything has been started. So here you'll be able to see the server is listening like this. So like this, whenever you are the server, the worker is getting crash means immediately you can start the instance. So that is the main thing. So now the next step which I want to tell you in this one is, so logging and the, what I mean to say is logging the cluster events, like so we'll try to check the cluster events, what are the events we are having it, and let's try to see about the things. So the normally the key cluster events which we will be having is, the first one is the online, okay. So when a worker has been forked and it is ready, so let's try to go here. So here you can write in such a way that, so cluster, so here you can have one simple example online. So you can take this example, so I already have this one. Now here you will can write it like this. So when the cluster becomes online, so you will be able to see that worker process is in the online. So the next one which you will be able to see is the listening. So when a worker starts listening on a port, so this event will be fired, this callback event will be fired. So if you want, you can use this callback event. So here this is another one, listening. So when that is listening, so worker address, and you will be able to see about this address and the port. And the another one which I can tell you the events is disconnect. So whenever it has been disconnected means, so then you will be able to see this method. So this callback event will be fired. So disconnect like this. And the another one which I can tell you is exit, you already know, fork. So whenever a new one has been forked means, so this is the fork event which you will be able to have it. So these are the events, different types of events which you will be having. Let's try to see this one in the practical example. I will review this one, clear. And here I will be running the cluster.js file. So here you'll be able to see the first one when it is before creating. So it has been forked like this. And now the worker is online, and now the server is listening to the port, and server 2727 is listening on something like this. You'll be able to see all the things. Now if I try to remove this one thing, okay, and here I will be force quitting this one. If you force quit this one, immediately see here worker is died, and again a new work has been created. Now it is online and server is listening, and here worker is listening on null. So here you'll be able to see when it is disconnected, worker 2729 disconnected, then only after that one exit is firing, then the fork is firing, then the online is firing. So here server is listening to the port, and the last listening is firing. So like this the events will be fired, so that if you want to log any data or anything means a particular event, you can able to log the data. So why this is all matters, logging events helps you debug the lifecycle issues when why a worker didn't come online, know when a worker goes offline, spot network binding issues, monitor the network restarts. So these are all the things we can able to find it. So these are all the different types, so which you can able to see about the cluster. In the next video, what we will try to do it is, in the next video we will try to see how we can communicate with the workers and also the master primary process. We'll try to see it. So how the communication or the worker messaging, how we can do it, let's try to see in the communication between the primary and also the workers. We'll try to see in the next video. Hope you understood about this concept. If you have any doubts or any suggestions, please post the comments below to this video. And if you like this video, please do support me by subscribing to my channel. Thank you.